I'm Michael Tamblyn, Chief Content Officer at Kobo. It's a long story, and I have a short time to tell it. So think of this as a haiku about self-publishing, its risks and its rewards. In some ways, self-publishing is like a dream. The ability to write your book, to easily distribute it through retailers who make enormous investments in search and recommendation to help people find it, and reach an audience of millions who have not only loved to read, but have declared that they are willing to pay to do so. It's magic. It's like some alternate reality version of the internet where writers get paid for writing. But it's real, with real authors selling hundreds of thousands of copies. It is a major business for Kobo, with Kobo Writing Life authors representing somewhere between 10 and 11% of unit sales globally, and all self-published titles, including various aggregators, representing about 15% or more. On October 12th, Kobo had a significant catalog of self-published titles in the UK, tens of thousands of authors, hundreds of thousands of titles, a thriving part of our UK business. On October 14th, we had 0 self-published titles available from 0 self-published authors, and our 300-year-old retail partner had suspended their web presence. 9 days later, it was all back again. Almost all of it. What happened in between is part business case, part computer science problem, an exploration of the challenges of gatekeeping versus technological empowerment, curation versus censorship. But really, it's about what it means to be a retailer when a retailer is also a publisher, is also a distributor, and when all content is digital. The self-publishing catalog is made up of hundreds of thousands of titles. It's mostly fiction. Of that fiction, much of it is romance. Of that romance, some of it we've come to call active romance. Kobo, like all retailers with a self-publishing arm, has a terms of use agreement for content that restricts the illegal and some topics that, if not illegal, we don't especially want in the store. Some authors and some publishers using the self-published platform decided to ignore them. And when they did that, this is what happens. The result was that sometime on about October 12th, we started to play something that seemed at times like the world's least pleasant literary video game. We called it Erotica Gate, and it starts like this. You have, let's say, several million titles. An unknown number of them contain sexual content, suggestive words, or adult themes. Of those, a much smaller number have sexual content that is against your terms of use. For both categories 2 and 3, some are well labeled and categorized, some are not. Some are covered with highly descriptive keywords, some are not. Some are mistakenly put into categories they shouldn't be by inexperienced authors unfamiliar with subject codes. Some are intentionally put there to boost search results and the possibility of discovery. All of the books that breach your terms are self-published, but some are from publishers using self-published tools to get books into the system, and if you really went digging, who knows what else you would find from traditional publishers as well. And this is how you play. If you remove all titles, you don't have a business. If you remove any titles, some people will consider you a censor. If you remove all titles with sexual content, you actually are a censor. If you don't remove a smaller number of titles that contravene your terms of use, you get bad PR and damage to your brand continues. Every book that you remove creates an angry author. Every author has a Twitter account. Every journalist wants to find the worst title possible. Authors of contravening content have every economic incentive to try and get their titles back in any way they can if you've taken them out. They can resubmit blocked books under new titles. They can submit books back in under titles and then change them after they've come in. But fundamentally, you believe that erotic and sexual content should be available. And there's a time limit. Until you have found everything that shouldn't be there, your partner's site stays down, because they are a deeply beloved, respectable, publicly traded, 300-year-old high street retailer. And if you don't win, Actually, you can't win. You can only not lose. And not losing is only about what you learn along the way. So, trying to answer all of these questions and deal with all of these constraints is how you end up with self-published titles removed from our catalog for 9 days. Because you quickly realize that to change from allowing everything to allowing anything other than everything is a leap of both incredible difficulty and ethical hazard. And you think, it's a digital business, it should be easier with computers, right? But trying to automate a search like this is incredibly difficult. It casts a net too wide. It screens out books that don't have anything to do with erotic or adult books, and even books that are with erotic and adult themes that we don't have any problem with. Regardless of how, it becomes about making choices and enacting them. It has to be an act of curation. Now, how can anyone truly curate a 4 million title database? Is it folly to think that you could? But at some point, if the answer is anything other than everything, someone has to decide. The decision may be on a book jacket or on a title, it may be on the structure of an algorithm that's used to find books, it may be on the reading of the content itself, or more likely all of the above, and it touches every single book. You instantly find that you are working in nearly infinite shades of gray, 100,000 nuanced decisions. And it's gray because some authors want to walk as close to the line as possible. They take pride in it, or they find commercial reward in it, or they see artistic merit in doing so. And every decision has 2 kinds of risk. If you let the wrong book pass, then you have the risk of alienating customers and bad press, possibly breaking the law. But there's also the other risk, the greater danger, the possibility, however vanishingly small, that the book that you are filtering out is the next Tropic of Cancer, the next Justine, the next Lolita. And over all of it, the fear that you, by using words like brand risk and community standards, you could take the smooth and reasonable tone of the censor. Although I think it's safe to say that if Nabokov had decided to call it Barely Legal Stepdaughter Fantasies Volume 4, instead of Lolita, he might have had a harder time with it. And of course, publishers have always had no problem saying no to books. Bricks and mortar retailers too, it's tradition. It's the time-honored role of the gatekeeper. Never enough shelves, only so many books that could be published. Lots of perfectly good reasons to say no, but self-publishing is different. The natural promise of self-publishing is yes, everything. Whatever you can imagine, whatever your story is, whether it be good or bad, or tinfoil hat crazy, or non-traditional, or deviant, or artistically groundbreaking, that's part of the dream. And every book removed feels like a small step away from that, even if it's for the best of reasons, even for the title that makes you, doubt your faith in humanity or throw up in your mouth. At one point, we had we had people in about a half a dozen countries working around the clock to try and get books back in as fast as possible. 100 bizarre conversations. Is it bestiality if it's sex with a shapeshifter? What if both participants are supernatural? What is the age of consent in every of 190 territories that we sell in? Does it matter if the character is in a coma and everything takes place in a dream? Is this book in or out? Over and over. And so over the course of a few days, most books were restored to the catalog, almost everything, but not absolutely everything. Some were clearly against our guidelines. At worst, some were tangled up in collections of other books from suppliers requiring one at a time manual review, thousands of titles. No books were ever removed from a user's library, but a relatively small number of titles were removed from sale. Most authors were understanding. Some were angry, some were loud, and they should be. In the physical world, to make a book go away is a big deal. You have to burn it or seize it at the border or confiscate it from a shop in a public, visual, galvanizing spectacle. But to delist, to deactivate, to change from a 1 to a 0 is silent and banal. We should be loud when it happens. And we should ask why. Authors should give us and every other ebook retailer a hard time when it happens because it is so much easier now to make something disappear. We are intensely relieved that self-published books are back in our UK catalog. There's still lots of work going on, lots of work still to be done, safe searching and inbound filtering and review, conversations with our vendors and with authors. And we've grown up a little bit. When the answer is anything other than yes, we will sell everything, you have to take a good hard look at what kind of bookseller you want to be, what it means to have that role. And we've decided that the right place for us is probably right at the edge of where it feels comfortable, with a clear view to that edge of the line. And we will shift and evolve it. Authors will push us and will challenge our boundaries and will go as far as they can go, and they should. And we will continue to grow in our role as the curator. Every ebook retailer now has to wrestle with this. I'm here because we're willing to do some of it out loud to acknowledge the choices that are always being made and have in many cases been quietly made for years, and be thoughtful about what those choices mean. And we'll wrestle with the danger and the significance of saying no, and push always for and appreciate the power of and the promise of saying yes. Thank you very much.